Today, a New Jersey businessman who testified about a scheme to bribe Senator Bob Menendez returned to the stand. Jose Uribe, described as star witness for the prosecution, just told the jury that he, Senator Menendez, and his wife Nadine spoke directly about Menendez's help with stopping an insurance fraud investigation during a dinner in 2019. He also testified that it was Nadine Menendez who promised to secure that help in exchange for a $60,000 Mercedes-Benz convertible. Joining me now, former federal prosecutor, host of the Justice Matters podcast, and MSNBC legal analyst Glenn Kirshner. NBC's Tom Winter is here in studio. What's the latest from court, Tom?
Right. Well, we're hearing from our colleagues, Jonathan Deans and Courtney Copenhagen, who are inside that courtroom right now, about what Uribe is testifying to. And his testimony, as you alluded to, Chris, started on Friday. He was one of the people initially charged with the senator and then pleaded guilty. And he's offering his testimony today about his part, his alleged part, in this scheme involving the senator and his wife, Nadine Menendez, specifically the idea that an investigation, state investigators that wanted to interview his daughter, that investigation could be stopped with the influence of Senator Bob Menendez and obviously his heavy influence in the state of New Jersey. One of the things that he testified to is that he specifically spoke to the senator and his wife at a dinner in Carlstadt, New Jersey. He testified, he said, I asked him, please find out whether there was an investigation into his daughter specifically. And he says, quote, I asked him, please use his power. Don't let these people hurt my daughter. He then testified that the senator answered, quote, he would look into it. Uribe then allegedly said, I asked him to help me get peace for me and my family. He says that he did not discuss those Mercedes car payments specifically with the senator. He said he had no reason to doubt that Menendez knew I was making payments on the car. That payment to the Mercedes-Benz that was included, a photo of that was included in the original indictment, started in June of 2019. It stopped in 2022. He was asked on the stand, well, why did you stop making payments on that car to Nadine Menendez? He says, well, it was after 2 FBI agents showed up at his house asking him questions about those payments that he stopped making them. So obviously, Uribe's testimony potentially very helpful to the prosecution today. Menendez, for his part, and his wife have pleaded not guilty, as we've discussed before.
FBI agents showing up at your house could have a chilling effect, okay?
Sure.
So, Glenn, I'm very curious about this because being a member of the Senate, the House, and people coming to you and you saying, I'll look into it, as far as I know, is not a criminal offense, but put it in the overall case that we're seeing here, and including the fact that it was Nadine Menendez who, he says, got the car.
Yeah, seeking help, seeking assistance from elected officials, there's nothing wrong with that. It goes on every day. But Senator Menendez and his wife are indicted for conspiracy to commit bribery, conspiracy to commit extortion and other offenses, because when you perform or promise to perform an official act in exchange for something of value to you personally, that sort of crosses the line into just representing your constituents. And, there is definitely quite a bit of evidence that's coming in during the course of the trial that involves Nadine Menendez, the senator's wife, sort of taking point on communicating with Mr. Uribe. And I think the jury will understand that she was perhaps acting as the go-between or the buffer, and she was having the lion's share of the conversations. But there's a lot of really damning evidence, even if it's only circumstantial. For example, Mr. Uribe was apparently growing concerned and impatient, and he sent her a text saying something like, I need peace. And the very next morning, there was evidence that Senator Menendez called the then Attorney General for New Jersey, Mr. Grewal, and according to the testimony of Attorney General Grewal, he tried to quash the investigation into Mr. Uribe's associates. Now, that may not be direct evidence of guilt, but it's powerfully and sharply incriminating circumstantial evidence that this was a robust conspiracy at play.
One of the things that we've talked about a lot recently as we've been covering these criminal trials is circumstantial evidence, but also common sense and jurors using common sense. So on one hand, for example, you might say, well, it was Nadine Menendez who talked about this, who got the car, who drove the car. On the other hand, the common sense part of it could be what Where did the senator think this car came from? A $60,000 car, right? Again, help us to understand as they build a case and they build a defense, how those things, circumstantial evidence, common sense, play into this case.
Yeah, so circumstantial evidence and common sense, certainly play in. I always argue to my juries, do not check your common sense at the door. Bring it into the jury box with you. Bring it into deliberations. But the other thing that will help pretty significantly in the prosecution's case are the rules of evidence when it comes to co-conspirator statements, because provided the government meets a threshold, an evidentiary threshold, that there was a conspiracy involved here, including the senator and his wife, then every statement made by every member of the conspiracy is admissible against every other member of the conspiracy, provided that it was made during the course of and in furtherance of the conspiracy. Those are the magic evidentiary words. So even the words coming out of Nadine Menendez's mouth can be attributed as incriminating evidence to the senator. But here's the other thing. The flip side of the coin, Chris, is that there's no doubt that Senator Menendez, the defendant on trial presently, will take full advantage of the empty chair defense, because his wife, the co-defendant, was severed out. She'll be tried separately. So you can bet the defense attorneys will be arguing, listen, if anybody did anything wrong, it was Nadine Menendez, and it was, without the knowledge of her husband, the senator. But as we've discussed, some of the evidence is already sort of undercutting that defense.
Glenn Kirshner, Tom Winter, gentlemen, I thank you both.